but you know why we're here. We know why you guys have come to join us. The draft position analysis that we have been touched on. Like I told you before, we just did the O-line, we did the interior and the tackles. We've done the running backs. We've done the quarterbacks. Now let's go ahead and go to the divas, a position that last year we saw, and we'll discuss that a little bit later, but last year there was a huge run on these early.
Oh, and I mean, a solid crop too.
Yes, absolutely. So right off top, you go back and look at last year's group receivers. You got the Jahan Dotson, the Olaves, the Londons, Jameson Williams. You guys picked up. You got a number of solid guys that in their prime, and Collins were the best, and made a name for themselves in the league last year. When you compare this crop to that, or what are you thinking? Are you thinking this might be a little bit better, or the crop last year, like you said, was elite? So what is your thoughts?
For me, comparing this year's class to last year's class, last year it was heavy on the elite tier guys for me.
Yep.
There was 6, 7, 8, maybe even 9 guys that were like, okay, this could be a number 1 guy.
Yeah.
And then it kind of fell off a bit for me. Where this year, I've got about 5-ish guys that could be number 1s.
Yeah.
But then it's deep in that number 2 category. Like this receiver class goes probably about 15, 20 deep. It's very, very solid. Like normally I'll list the top 5, but I had no problem listing like 10 with a few sleepers. Like it was just like, this is a very, very good class. I expect probably 10 to 12 gone by the end of day 2.
Oh, absolutely. And this class, the number one word that comes to mind is contribution. Like some of the guys might be big, some of the guys might be smaller, but each of these guys, you bring them in on your team and put them in the right situation. And I mean, look, we saw how it panned out last year. These guys, I think, are going to help some solid teams. And I'm very interested to see where, especially like our top of the top go. But then also, obviously, you got, Zay Flowers, who's, if not in your top, right outside. Josh Downs at the UNC. A couple of these guys that have a lead ability, but might not have been looked at, or just because of who we have ahead of them, they just got pushed like right at the top.
That's exactly what it is. Yeah.
Yeah. So, hey, let's go into it. Who is your cream of the crop, top 5 wide receivers coming into this year's draft?
So, number 5 for me is your guy, Josh Downs. He cracked the top 5. He's so good. He's going to be an absolute difference maker. I like him in the slot, and I like him to be lethal in the slot. Yeah. And I think he's a first-round guy. Yeah. I think you're looking, especially with how many teams need a receiver this year, like if you put him in New York for the Giants, that is a difference maker for Daniel Jones. I love that slot there. Number 4 for me is Zay Flowers. They both cracked my top 5. Burner. Absolute burner. This guy can fly. If he was a couple inches bigger, he's that outside demon. But again, this is another guy that's going to be lethal in the slot. And just torching those safeties down the middle of the field. I like him. If you put him to learn from Keenan Allen in Los Angeles for the Chargers.
Yeah.
Oh, man. And then you have Mike Williams still on the outside. That's Justin Herbert's going to be a happy dude. That's for sure.
Oh, absolutely.
But then these top 3 kind of separate themselves for me. And it's a pretty big gap. Number 3 for me, I've got Jordan Addison. Okay. Last year's Bletnikoff winner when he was with Pickett in Pittsburgh. Upgrades at quarterback, goes to Caleb Williams in USC. Has another phenomenal season. This guy, it's a lot of slot guys this year just based on size. He could be a number 1 from the slot. Think of a Cooper Kupp.
Yeah.
A more athletic Cooper Kupp. That's what I see with Jordan Addison. This guy is going to ball in the NFL pretty much wherever he goes. Number 2 for me is the only real big guy I have in my top 5, Quentin Johnston from TCU. Big, fast, jump ball catcher. Like there's nothing he can't do. It's just number one for me is my number one from before the season. And him not playing much this season didn't change that. But Quentin Johnston, I expect him to be gone by 15. I expect 2 receivers to be gone in the top 15. And my other one's Jackson Smith and Jigba from Ohio State. Yeah. He was the best receiver in 2021. I know he didn't get to play much in 2022. All that did was gave the other players a chance to improve their draft stock. That's all it is. Turn on that Rose Bowl game from, I guess, technically 2022, but and I saw this guy firsthand torch defenses all throughout 2021. This guy is an elite receiver, the best route runner in this draft without question. And whoever gets him is getting a dynamic weapon in the slot. I think he's a little too small to play outside, but with his route running, you could get away with it, kind of like a Golden Tate when we played him outside. But the dude is phenomenal. He very well could go in the top 10.
Yeah.
And he should. He's a top 10 talent.
I was about to say, yeah, think about that crop of receivers a couple of years ago at Ohio State. With Jackson Smith and Jigba, you got Olave, Marvin Harrison, Garrett Wilson, right? Like, I mean, elite and all top of the line. I remember they did like a little biopic there in the middle of one of the seasons, and they were just like, we're just challenging each other. Like, the only competition we have is in-house. Like, they were that
and good. They weren't wrong about that. Like,
right. And so, I 100% agree with that. So, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to do it. I know I'm a Tar Heel guy, but I'm going to be honest with you. I got Josh Downs outside the top 5, just outside, but he's outside. I got Zay Flowers at my 5, like you. I mean, he's just moved up, especially in this offseason, and starting to watch his tape and watch his ability. I love what you're saying about him potentially being in the slot. I mean, this guy can move. He's got speed, and he's one of those that I think you can kind of hide in motion, and then all of a sudden comes off, hits something quick, and then just takes off down the field. Number 4 for me, and this might be biased because of one game, and I hate to do this, but whenever you see this, you just got to – if anything that makes you, especially us – you just sit back and you're like, that's NCAA 14 production right there. Jalen Hyatt.
Yep.
5 TDs in one game. Anytime a man gets 5 touchdowns in a game, I mean, the rest of the season is moot, because that game, if you can bring out that kind of production, and a team that we saw vastly improved, and in my opinion, if you really look at it, I don't know that he's. I don't want to say he's not the best on the team, but my 7 is Cedric Tillman. So they had elite quality wide receivers in there. But when you have a production in a game like this against the talent that he had it against, I got to put you at my number 4 for Jordan Hyatt.
Hyatt's number 6 for me. He fell just outside just because of that. Yeah,
there it is. Number 3, I agree. Jordan Addison. Like you said, Blitnikoff winner last year out of Pittsburgh. He had Pickett with him. I don't know if you could say he dropped, because coming in, he was probably my 1 and my 2, but the only thing that I really had an issue with is that he was so great last year that it was almost like Jadeveon Clowney when he had that great junior year, then came back the senior year and didn't do as much, didn't have a bad season, but you're so, you look so much at the season before that it could make
same thing as Will Anderson this year.
Exactly.
Exact same thing.
Yeah. So Jordan Addison, wherever he goes, I know our buddy Sid wants him to come back with his college quarterback in Pittsburgh. I know he was talking about that. But wherever he goes, I think he's definitely going to be a great contributor. Mm-hmm. I mean, like I said, last year he was best wide receiver in the nation, and he has that ability to bring it to the table. So anybody who gets him is definitely getting a stud. And look, my 1 and 2 is similar to yours. I have Jackson Smith and Jigba at 2. And this is just purely because of similar what we just talked about with him not being on the field. That's how I just feel like Quentin Johnston went up. But still, you are getting a guy that is top 15, top 20 talent, and he's going to day 1 starter. You can stick him in the lineup, and he's going to contribute. So absolutely Jackson Smith and Jigba too. And then I just don't feel like we can overlook the year that Quentin Johnston had. You have Max Duggan. Right. You have Max Duggan. You have obviously talked about Vila on the line last week. Kendre Miller, that defense, they shocked the world. But in order to do that, you got to have a stud. You have to have a dog outside. And he's got that. You got that in Quentin Johnston. And look, I'm eager to see where he goes because on some of these teams in the league, he could be, you might potentially put him as your number one, and he has the ability to take a game over. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If you work the ball to him and get him with a good quarterback. So, yeah, Quentin Johnston's definitely by number one. But, yeah, I'm not too far off. I mean, our things are fairly similar. Jalen Hyatt, I had to move in here. And for me, I mean, maybe it's that just the bias of the one game. Yeah, I know it's like, it's just one game. I know. But it was against Alabama.
Yeah.
It was a game they needed to have. And after you get one touchdown, after you get two, and even three, there's a point where the entire stadium is saying you're getting the ball, and everybody knows it. And then they get 4 and 5.
Yeah.
Drop the mic. Like,
yeah,
what are we talking about here? So hopefully it comes to fruition. Hopefully these guys ball out like we're saying. But yeah, that's my top 5. But